everybody, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time of being here, my name is Abiola Adefe, but you can call me Abiola by Grace, Abby, or Abiola. And to my regulars, thank you so much for coming back to watch me on my channel. I don't take it for granted at all. And as you can see, it's another conversation episode on my channel here. And with me today, I have a guest with me who's going to be telling us so many things we need to know in this real estate, taking over the properties everywhere we go, kind of thing, but using Canada as a case study anyways. So with me today is Dammy, who is an expert in our field. So welcome, Dammy. Welcome to my
Yay!
channel.
Hi, Abiola. Thank you very much for having me, and hi, everyone.
Yeah, Dami. So, Dami, just tell us a bit about yourself. Then afterwards, I'll, give a backstory as to why we're talking about this and also the intent of it today. All right. So, over to you, Dami.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for having me on your channel. I'm super excited about the opportunity to talk about something that I'm super passionate about. In terms of the background about myself, my background is in economics. I have undergrad in economics, master's in economics. I've always been like a fan of anything that has to do with the economy or financial and finances and everything. So over time, I bought my first property and I saw the values going up, and I just, okay, this is interesting. And I think with Canada, the financial system works very differently, right?
Yeah.
From Nigeria. So it kind of was like a relearning to say, okay, what's going on? How do you thrive in this economy? So I started investing in real estate. And then while I was investing in real estate, I realized that this mortgage process is like a stumbling block to my life. Let me read more about it. So in the process of educating myself for my own purpose, I ended up learning so much. I started helping out my friends. And then later on, I decided to get my license and do this professionally. I was still working full time as a data scientist when I started mortgage agent, which is very different. But over time, actually, I'm full time now, and this is something that I'm super passionate about. And I believe, especially for immigrants, we really need to understand how this financial system works. And real estate is actually one of the really great opportunities to be able to build wealth in this country. So that's kind of a bit of my journey from how I got into the space and where I am right now.
Thank you so much, Dami. You guys, so it's at this point I'll tell you to grab your notes and your pen. I don't have mine here because I need to listen, but I will definitely go over this video and make my own notes. And thank you, Dami, because you actually touched a bit as to why we're talking about this. And background story to how Dami and I met on Instagram, and we ought to have had this conversation sometime last year, but because of my whole pregnancy phase, we couldn't. And I'm grateful to God because everything happens for a reason and for better. I mean, if we had had a conversation last year, we wouldn't have been able to capture everything we're going to talk about today, the questions I have for you. And so I'm grateful we're having this now. And to many people who may be wondering, okay, so what has this got to do with me? I'm just a Christian, a faith-based person, I'm a believer, and that's all. Let me let you know that in you taking over the kingdom, you need the wealth. And
Mm.
and in you and wherever you may be a student now, or you're just planning to even get into Canada or wherever country, like I said, we're using Canada as a case study, but this works everywhere. Like Western world, you can still pick one or two things. So I just want to remind you to grab your notes, your papers, and be ready to learn. And the end result of this particular session is for you to have questions for Dami, so that because we are planning to have like a live session on Instagram. So by the time we're able to gather your questions, because today we are focusing on the questions I have for her based on my observations and based on what conversations I've had with friends and people in the
Excellent.
space as well. So but we want to attend to your own questions, so be ready to have those questions for us. You can send me a DM or send me a DM. I'm going to leave a link to our Instagram, so you can just reach out to her. And then so when we have our live session, we'll be addressing those questions. Enough of the talking, Abiola. Dami is the one on the hot seat today. So now, Dami, back to you. Let's
Yes.
just start from the basics. As a
Okay.
newcomer, as a student, a new family coming into Canada, and we plan to, settle here, build wealth here, but we want to get our first home. What are the factors and the things we should start looking at, even from the first day we get into this country? Because we don't want to wait until when we are ready. So the things we want to know we are all about progressing on my channel. So progressing as a family now, we want to know, we want to get into the real estate, we want to start building equity. What are the factors and the things to start knowing from day one?
Okay. I think that's a good question to start this with. I think the best way for me to explain that it's based on really three factors that you should be concerned with before you step into the country. While you're in the country, I would say the first one is credit. So I think that's one system that is very different for a lot of immigrants because, like for me, I'm from Nigeria. We don't really have that much of a credit system. Most people, when they buy their first home, they stay for a long time. They buy the land, they build. The mortgage credit system is not really as developed as it is. But in this part of in this economy, the credit is very important because on average, I would say homes are maybe 500,000. Let me just use that because that would depend on the province. Some provinces obviously way higher than that, and some provinces you can get less. So that means if we did not have a credit system, people have to save about $500 plus the inflation to be able to buy a first home, which is pretty scary. So I actually think people say credit is scary, but I think it's like a great opportunity. It's a leveler. It means that I can purchase my home and live in my own home, even if I don't have $500,000 saved up. So that's credit. So mortgage is pretty much you want to buy a 500,000 home. You don't have $500,000, so you want to borrow some of that, and then you are also bringing your own portion. So let's say you bring $50,000 from your own savings. The bank can lend you 450,000, and then over time, still over 25 years, you can also do yours in fewer years if you have that capacity. You then pay slowly. Okay, so that's pretty much how the mortgage system. In order for the lender to be able to hand over 450,000 to you, which is really investors' money, they want to ensure that you can pay back. Mm-hmm. And the way they look at that is your past credit history. So how did you handle your credit card? How did you handle your phone bill? Credit card is not free money. Yes, it's easily accessible, especially if you just came in and people say, oh, new immigrants, here is $1,000 credit limit. But that really starts your credit report or your credit worthiness in the country. So if you demonstrate good ability to maintain the $1,000 that you have borrowed, then they find like, okay, this person can handle 450,000. So I would say the first thing, if you're an immigrant, you're coming into the country, you should spend time to understand how the credit system works. You spend time to understand what affects your credit score, just to make sure that you have a good credit system, good credit rating in the country. So that's the one. The second is, I'll say, your savings. Like I said, if you're buying a 500,000 home, the bank is not going to hand you the full 500,000. They want you to have some skin in the game. And the skin in the game, it depends on your income. It depends on like your credit. Some people can get in with as little as 25,000. Some people need a bit more. So your savings also very important. And I want to say for new immigrants, one of the advantages, I think, a lot of people that I meet, they are bringing that proof of funds. You bring in some money, right, into Canada. Yeah. But then bills start to hit you right, left. Before you know it, it's just going by very quickly. But I think it's important to put it at the back of your mind that there's this other big expense that you have, which is eventually buying your home. So if you're able to manage those expenses and you can keep as much of your money as possible, it makes it easier for you to eventually buy because now you still have a huge chunk of savings. So I'll say your savings are very important. The third is your income. So to determine the difference between why somebody will qualify for 450,000 relative to another person, apart from the credit and how much your savings, is your income. The more income you have, the more credits you can get, the more mortgage you can get for your own personal use or even to buy an investment property. So I'll say those are the three most important factors. There are other factors that they look at, but I'll say credit, your own equity, which comes from your savings if you're a first-time home buyer, and then the third would be your income.
Wow, that's actually,
so. That's not too much information, but I think that's like comprehensively. Yeah, if you wanted to write any three things to focus on, those would be the three that I would focus on.
At course, yeah. Okay, so now for immigrants who are already here and maybe already got their first purchase done, and they're like, okay, I think I want to get like a or a land, or maybe commercial project, commercial properties, or and also we'll still talk about equity, but I want us to discuss, the getting of the maybe a second property, want to start a project from scratch or even
Yeah.
commercial project. Yeah. So like how can they go about it after you've been an immigrant who has gotten your first house. So how can they go about it?
Yeah. So if you're an immigrant that have gotten your first house, congratulations. You
Mm-hmm.
stepped in, but it's not the end of, because let's say you're paying 500 every month. If you don't do anything else from like an investment perspective, that means it will take you 30 years. Most times your kids are starting school before then. You don't want to take 30 years to have the ability to pay your money. That's where investment comes in. So I think it's very important. Yes, you can pay a little bit more, or you can get a lower interest rate. But what really makes an impact is if you're able to make more money with some of the equity that you have. And I think that's very important, where as a new immigrant, you can't just say, oh, I bought my first one, I'm going to chill now. No.
No.
So what can I do to
Just
buy more?
starting.
Because over time, that's actually what would make a difference between who is mortgage free faster. It's not who is staying with their own mortgage for 25 years. To buy your next property is actually easier than buying your first property. The good thing about it is that when you have your first mortgage, at least as you pay your mortgage every month, you are building equity in the property.
Yes.
Also, over time, the value of the property increases, even if it's not like increase on in a steady economy, to increase by inflation, which is 2%, which is still quite good. So over time, you now are building equity. And the advantage of that is that you can then use the equity to purchase an investment property, purchase a land for development. And the question I get to that is, well, I'm increasing my debt. Why am I increasing my debt? Because technically taking out equity is like borrowing additional money. But the way I look at it personally is, by you leaving that equity in your property, let's say your mortgage rate is 3%, let me just throw out that number. You are saving 3% by you not taking it out. So can you take it out and make more than 3%?
Yeah.
Yes, even if you have it invested in the index funds, average of 8%, it's still, the numbers still work out better for you to do that than to leave it in the property, because you are saving 3% essentially by not taking it out. And then if you do investment properties and all these other investments that are out there, the potential to get way more than that 3% is actually higher. So if you're a new immigrant, what you can do if you're looking into that line of things is to see how much equity you even have in your property, and see what are some of the things that you can do without equity. You can go into like rental property investments, you can do pre-construction, you can use it to buy a commercial property. So there's a lot of opportunities. I'll speak specifically to commercial. The difference with commercial is, let's say you were buying a residential property, the way we qualify you is your income and the income that is generated by the property. So there's still a lot of focus on your own personal income. Okay. But for commercial, because those properties are like literally business income generating, there's more emphasis on the business itself than on your own personal situation. So that's kind of the difference between like residential and commercial.
Okay, so what if you were to get a land? Like,
yeah,
the same
so
thing?
So if you were to get a land, the contribution is more. So typically more than 20% down payment. It also depends on if that land is already connected to utility services or if it has nothing connected to it. If it has nothing connected to it, you're looking at even more down payment. Okay. So yes, an opportunity that you could do is to look for a maybe less developed area, buy land. In that case, we can take out the equity and use that equity as a down payment for the land. We can also do something that is called a blanket mortgage, where you just get one new mortgage and the land and your own property is under it, and you just have one mortgage payment. So which one is better is going to depend on your own particular situation. If you're in a more developed city, let's say you're in Toronto, we really don't have land in Toronto anymore. So what people are doing is they are really literally buying very old properties, and then they are breaking it down and redeveloping it. But it's very similar process. The advantage of doing that over buying land, because when you buy land, and if it's not like you're not renting it to a farmer, it's not income generating, but you're making monthly payments per month.
Mm,
Whereas you can also buy an old property, rent it out, and just wait for some time, because that way the income from that property is actually still paying, if not all, some of your mortgage.
yeah. Oh, nice.
Or
That's
I also know someone that I helped. They bought a land, but they are renting that land to a farmer. So it's still generating some income, and they're just waiting for some time to be able to have the ability to develop it into their own custom home.
nice. That's good. So now we've been talking about equity, and I know there are different types of equity and information out there about it. So can you just give us like a summary for people to understand, what equity is and the different types and how they can channel their equity to actually generate more wealth for themselves and for this
Yeah.
kingdom?
Yes. Okay, so the simple way to calculate your equity is just like think about the example I gave earlier, right? The property is worth 500,000, and then you are bringing your equity of 50,000. In this case, your equity is exactly the same as your down payments, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you are living in the property, you are making your mortgage payments. The mortgage payment is a combination of your interest and principal. So
Mm-hmm.
that 450,000 that you started with is going lower. So let's say you're at the point that your mortgage balance is 400,000 and the house is still worth 500,000. You now have 100,000 in equity, 50,000 that you started with, and 50,000 that you paid down from your own fund. But the exciting part of it is you also have the market appreciation. So let's say that the property is now worth 600,000. You've paid down your mortgage to 400,000, only 50,000 paid down, and then you brought started with 50,000. You have 200,000 in equity. You can leave it, or you can take it out, like I said, and use it for another like investment property, or any other thing that is like at least is generating something that is going to pay you more than the cost of borrowing, which is like the 3% on average interest rates.
Mm. Wow. Thank you so much
So
for.
even though I should caution, so that example you started with 500,000 is now worth 600,000, and your balance is now 400,000. You have equity of 200,000, but you cannot take out all the 200,000 because, like I said, the bank wants you to have some skin in the game. So
Yeah.
typically, you have to have 20% of equity in the property before you can take out any money.
Any money. Oh, yeah. I mean, that caution is needed so that people won't be like, okay, so I can just go grab my money, the
Take
200.
out, yeah, you can't take out the 200,000, like, because of course, from a risk mitigation point of view for the bank, they want you to have some equity, but you can still take out a good portion of that. So typically, I'm not going to do the math right now, but typically you need to have 20% of equity in the property, and anything less, as long as your income qualifies for it, you can take it out. There are even some programs where they allow you to take out the equity, even if your income doesn't qualify for it. But the interest rate is typically a bit higher, so you have to really weigh it with what you need it for to see if it's worth it. It's not only for investment, you can take it out for debt consolidation. Let's say you have line of credit cards, you are paying a much higher interest, you're able to consolidate all of that into one simple mortgage payment. So that's something else where people take out equity. Some people take it out to pay for children's school fees.
Mm,
Like you can use it, it's something you can use it to renovate your house, maybe put a new basement so that you can use it for your own needs or rent it or something. So
yeah.
you can take it out for investment purposes, but you can also take it out for any other needs that you have, like for your own self or for your family.
Mm. Thank you so much for that. So, to my last question before you give us like any last words or last thing we need to know, maybe
Yeah.
something we didn't capture in this conversation. Um, so is say I'm a new student in Canada or I'm planning to come to Canada in December or next year. Is there a time frame for me to watch out for, like between when I get to Canada and when I can get my first property? Like, is there a time frame? Is it like in 6 months, in a year, in 2 years, or in 5 years? Depending. Yeah, I would just like
Good
people.
question.
Yeah,
Everybody's different.
yeah.
I have international students that buy in 3 months. I also have some people that after being a student for several years, they got their work permit, they are now here and they are buying. There's no golden time rule. I would say is when you can afford it because it's still like a huge commitment.
Yeah.
So when you feel like you are in that headspace, don't wait too long, but also don't get into it too soon that you
Yeah.
cannot afford it,
Commit to it.
right? So I think you have to evaluate yourself and talk to a professional to see if, based on your profile, they feel like you're ready or you still need some time to wait before you're ready. So
Yeah.
no golden time. I'll say the earlier the better, but you also have to be financially ready because it's a huge responsibility.
Yeah. So like you said, you can actually get professional, advice on this, and that's why you can actually contact Dammy on Instagram. I contacted her earlier this year as well because I had some questions and she was able to put me through. Even though we need to follow up on that definitely after this
Yes.
conversation. Yeah. So any last words for us, Dammy? Any last words? Anything you think we need to know that we didn't capture in this conversation? I know we still have like other conversations based on people's questions. This is just based on a general perspective here. And so, is there anything you think we need to know today?
I think we did like quite a good overview. So I can't think of anything specifically. But I think like in general, like starting in a new country is pretty scary, like and valid. But like you kind of have to not say, "Oh, I'm afraid I'm not going to do anything." You have to educate yourself out of that fear. Like that's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
And that the sooner you do that, the better for you in the long run. So I would say ask questions, reach out to me through Instagram, phone. I typically love to talk about real estate or like mortgage because this is an area that I'm really passionate about. And just ask questions and educate yourself out of fear. It's not all roses in real estate. I'm not saying that you're never going to have any challenge, but you can educate yourself so that if you do run into challenges, you can know how to deal with it.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's like you said, I mean, we captured the general perspectives. These things are quite relative to people's specific situations and stages of
Yeah.
life. And like you said, to keep educating ourselves, and we've done our bit by bringing it out here that this is open for you to start having conversations about it. Just like every other aspect of life that contributes to growth, this is something that will contribute to our financial growth as well, building wealth, generational wealth. And so be open to reach out to Dammy if you have questions. So Dammy, thank you so much for honoring this. Like, I don't take it for granted. I don't. I always appreciate when I have people, experts in their field, that can actually share on my channel, because the whole goal is for us to keep growing, like progressing as a family, as individuals. Collaborations like this, partnerships like this are what will actually spearhead the growth that we
Mhm.
hope to have and experience. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. And to my viewers, my audience, thank you so much for staying to the very end. And I hope to see you guys in my next episode by God's grace. Take care until next time with me. Take care and be safe. Bye, Dammy.
Thank you, Abiola, and thank you everyone for listening.